It is 6:01. Let me make sure the recording is started. We have Penny Benelli, we have Donovan Nichols, and Kelly Tarbell who are online. We've got David Martin in person, myself, Wayne Millington, and then Cheryl Hammond, our business manager, here as well. So we do have a quorum. There's 6 people on this board, takes 4. We have exactly 4 board members that are here. First action step, first agenda item is to elect a chair. Process is we open it up to nominations. Nominations do not need to have a second. When it sounds like all nominations are out on the floor, nominations will close. There'll be an opportunity for discussion, and then we'll vote. Then I'll leave it up to discussion at the time whether you want it to be a voice vote or a paper ballot. Are we ready? Mm-hmm. So I'll open the floor for nominations for chair for the TRSU board. Overwhelming silence. That's not good.
I was just going to say, I don't know if Lisa is willing to do it as board chair from Green Mountain. I would nominate her, but I don't know because she's not here.
You can try it. Usually protocol is if somebody is nominated, the next question is, are they willing to serve? So I'm not saying you can't do it, but.
You nominated Kel?
You have her phone? Would it be legit to call her to ask if she's willing to serve?
I don't. Kelly, do you?
I don't have her phone number. No.
I don't either.
Yeah, Donovan, do you or Penny?
I don't, but
yeah,
Donovan
I can try
might.
reaching out.
Oh, we got Shannon just came in as well.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we can pause for a minute if you want to reach out, see if she's willing to serve, if she's nominated.
David nominated Kelly.
Oh, it sounded like she declined. Well, I'll double check after.
It wasn't quite a nomination. It was a question. She followed up with a different question. I say that right, Kelly?
Sorry, I can hardly hear you guys.
We were picking on you.
Oh, good. It's a good thing I couldn't hear.
Interested and you changed the subject.
All right, so that's a no from Lisa.
Okay.
All right, so we got to go back. Are there nominations for board chair?
So Kelly, are you willing to do it since Lisa won't?
I can, but it's, yeah, I can. I mean, it's a different governance style, and but I can do it, and hopefully I can reach out to, lean on people for help, I guess. Reach out to everybody for help. That's all.
Okay. Fair enough.
And perhaps if you can would Lisa be willing to be vice chair?
Well, let's we got nominations open for this. So what we'll do is we will close nominations. It sounds like Kelly is willing with a little arm twisting to serve in the position. We can probably just do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's hard to tell with folks online. Maybe we should go around. Donovan.
Aye.
Penny.
What?
Are you a yay or a nay in terms of being board chair?
Yay.
Shayna.
Yay.
Who else have we got online? Kelly, you can vote for yourself if you want to, but you don't need to.
I will reluctantly vote for myself.
Any nays? Everybody voted yes, so it's unanimous, so you now have a board chair. Kelly, do you have the paperwork that you need for tonight?
I was just trying to check on to see something else. So hang on 2 seconds. I have the folder open. Just give me a minute to get there again.
Yep.
There we go. All right. So we appointed a board chair. Approval of the agenda. Any additions or deletions? None?
Looks
I
like
move we approve the agenda.
All right. A second for the agenda? I can't look at the agenda and see much online. I can only see you guys. So if there's a second from the Zoom room, I can't see it.
I wasn't there, so I have to abstain on this.
No,
We're just approving the agenda.
Second.
Right, oh, yeah, oh,
So thank you,
okay.
Donovan. I heard Donovan say second.
So,
All
okay.
those in favor of the agenda as is?
aye.
Aye.
All right. And then I am going to guess that we should table the approval of the meeting minutes because I wasn't there, Patty wasn't there. I don't think we'd have enough to pass them with such a low turnout. Is that correct?
that sounds correct. I would make a motion to table.
Somebody want to make the motion to table
moved.
the,
Approval of the,
thank you. All right, so we will approve the March 5th, 2026 meeting minutes at our May meeting. And then the ownership linkage, any public comment? Again, I can't see the Zoom room.
Checking online, I don't see any.
Okay. And then we'll move into the reorganization of the board. And I would open nominations for vice chair.
would Lisa be willing to do that? Can we check with her?
I've nominated.
Can I not? Okay.
Former AG TJ Tillman in 2017.
If she's not willing, I would be willing to nominate Katie Benson.
She says she believes he's the change that Chittenden County needs now. Cronenfeld is
And I do have confirmation that she's willing to do it.
last 2 years. Says he wants to restore.
Oh, that'd probably be the better bet then.
Mhm.
Vermont Secretary of State is challenging the White House for trying to restrict mail-in voting.
And so are we nominating Lisa and Katie?
No, I was asking a question.
Okay.
Making a nomination.
All right, then I will nominate Katie Benson for
I'll
vice
second.
chair. I think I heard a second. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none. All those in favor of Katie Benson as vice chair?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Great, thank you. Board clerk. Nominations for board clerk?
Who's our former clerk?
It might have been me.
I think you did both jobs.
It's
I don't think it's a job with many responsibilities.
It is not.
The way that your board is set up, it most likely the responsibility is if the recording secretary isn't here. And to take notes for like executive sessions, the time in, time out, that sort of thing.
but they say hospital leaders are against it.
Dave, is that something you'd mind doing?
I'm not good at taking notes while I'm in a meeting.
Okay. Donovan or Patty?
Patty's an alternate, so Patty's an alternate.
Oh, Patty's an alternate, sorry.
yeah. It's Penny, by the way. I know it's
sorry.
Patricia. That's okay. We don't know each other. It's Patricia,
Okay.
but it's Penny.
Okay, Penny, I got you. All right.
I would volunteer to nominate myself for that. This is Shayna.
Oh, sorry, Shanna. I didn't even know there was another person here. All right.
That's
gotcha.
okay.
It's really hard because I only see the room until somebody talks.
Oh, really?
That's why I identified myself for you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so I will nominate Shayna as board clerk. Are there any other nominations? Okay, I will close nominations, and all those in favor of Shayna being the board clerk,
Aye.
and anybody opposed? Perfect. Warrant signer. Are there nominations for warrant signer?
I can't do the job because I'm an alternate, but I'm curious, what is a warrant signer?
So the every 2 weeks, I get it. Somebody gets in, whoever it is, gets an email, and you sign off that the bills match up with the invoices, the paychecks, all of that kind of thing. Most of it's done online. It's fairly simple. It's pretty, it's routine, but it's a short bit of time each month.
Yeah.
Is there a reason the alternate couldn't do it?
Steve, why are you laughing?
Ask somebody that's sitting next to you
Yeah.
after spending 3 hours with me today.
Oh, well, sorry, Steve, are you officially on TRSU?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I didn't think so, but I wanted to make sure. Sorry.
Katie Benson is currently doing it. I don't know if she'd be willing to continue.
I can find out. All right, let's see if I get an answer on that. Can we move to recording secretary? Oh, wait, she's typing back.
Recording secretary students.
So I noticed the level.
Yeah, she said she would be happy to still do that. So I will nominate Katie Benson to be the warrant signer. Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of Katie being the warrant signer for TRSU?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Perfect. Then recording secretary.
So that Sophie Stone was hired by TRSU. I mean, the board can choose somebody different, but that's who we highly recommend.
Right.
Like Katie.
Somebody, I will nominate Sophie Stone.
We don't need a second, right?
Right, no, need a second. So are there other nominations? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of Sophie Stone being the recording secretary?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Perfect. And committee assignments. Do we have?
The current folks are Lisa and Caitlin. And that work, I think they probably have one more meeting and they're going to be wrapped up. They're moving pretty quick. If I could make a recommendation, I would try to keep the same two folks just because they've been working with the teachers group for a while now. They kind of know what's the ins and outs and what's going on. They've done really good work too.
Makes sense.
Lane, I heard what you said. I didn't hear the first two names that you said.
Oh, so Lisa Sanders and Caitlin Benson.
Okay.
Current folks.
All right. And so those, that would be just for the teacher contract or the work group?
Just the work group.
All right. So for the work group, I would nominate Lisa Sanders and Katie Benson. Are there other nominations for that work group?
That's a lot. I agree.
All right. Hearing none. All those in favor of Katie and Lisa being the work group?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Perfect. Do we need to do the other teacher contract? Get away. Sorry, my dog is attacking me. Teacher contract co-curricular
I would say no unless some sort of labor dispute comes up, which is highly unlikely, and you could form
Okay. And yeah, we can do that at the next meeting when it's a little less awkward. I hate chairing the meeting from online. Sorry. All right. So we'll table that until next month.
Okay.
And then I would move to the monitoring organization and the district reports, starting with the superintendent's report.
So I'll touch on the facilities as well. There's updates. Actually, David sent around some of the updates that I was following too about Act 73.
I only sent it to you.
Oh, okay. So, we've got up here. They've changed it a little bit since yesterday. We actually heard from the Senate committee. And so what their current idea is that they have now is breaking the state up into district areas. So those areas are not school districts. What they are is they're an area where the districts that currently reside within an area can come together and decide to merge if they want to. So, you can call them merger areas. One of the mandates about this is that if they go with this scheme, with these district areas, is that each district has got to engage in a merger study that's going to be facilitated by a state person. Doesn't mean that you have to choose to merge. You can choose not to, but you have to go through the study. That's not a choice. And then whatever the findings of each district's merger study turns out to be, that would go in front of the voters of the towns of that district at the March town meeting, town voting day should say 2018. That was a typo on my part. So that's kind of where the current focus is right now with Act 73.
Lane, can I clarify? You said the study votes would be 2018?
2018. I have 2028 on the slide. I made a typo.
Right, but 2018 was many years ago.
Right. I'm losing it. I've been sitting for too long today.
Okay, just want to be sure.
Yeah. Still doesn't feel like we're in the 2000s to me, but.
I think partly the Senate and the Assembly or the House still have different views. In the Senate, one of the things they're talking about is encouraging districts to merge, and if they don't get enough mergers to authorize the Board of Ed or the Agency of Ed to force mergers.
Yeah.
Okay. However, one of the provisions in the Senate draft was that they could only merge like districts. So Ludlow, Mount Holly would be off the hook because we're not adjacent to any other K-6 districts. Okay. Whereas in the House bill that the committee approved this afternoon, the regions that are up shown on the map are the regions for the CESAs, the service, but the suggested mergers are the old Conlon map.
Essex County, New York.
And so the suggestion would be that PRSU two districts would merge with Springfield.
Yeah.
At least have that as their discussion.
And so Route 100.
Hey, this one did make it out of committee. I don't think the House one has. There were 4 other maps that folks are discussing.
And that kind of thing. We're not talking about a lot of rain. This band of rain will live through. And ultimately, we get into the warm part of this weather system.
We have
The drops on the camera.
Guys, did they glitch?
Yeah, no, I was just looking to try to see where the background noise is coming from. But
So we've got the fancy temperature map.
The other thing that they've been discussing
below freezing. That's most
is special education. They're trying to get a bill out on the floor to require there to be a statewide study of special education, what the impacts of the current delivery service models are, and with the goal of developing kind of statewide recommendations for how to hopefully, kind of improve services, the outcomes of those services, and as well as reduce costs. Preschool, This is one that they've been pushing for a long time. They really want, full day preschools. This has been a focus for about 5 years. But the problem is that they are not paying schools the full value of a full day preschool student. We get a 0.5, we get half the value of a full-time student for them. They've been swearing up and down that they are going to correct this every year for the last 5 years. And so right now they've tabled it again. They've kicked the can down the road and said, you know what, we'll pick it up again and look at it if and when the foundation formula goes into effect. So that's still an open question mark. As part of Act 73, they have this idea of having statewide graduation requirements. And the reality is this didn't come by choice. The U.S. Department of Education basically stepped in and took a look at the state and said, your graduation expectations of students are variable, right? Each district does its own thing because of local control. They're also not rigorous enough. And your flexible pathway system that has been in law for a little over a decade now does not ensure that students are meeting the standards of the education that they're supposed to get. And so what the state's response to that citing from the U.S. Department of Education is that they're going to develop statewide graduation standards and requirements, which are in the process of being worked on right now. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit of a discussion here because I think it's very important for the community to know and for the board to be aware of. When we go to budget season, and the governor has actually been saying kind of the same thing and trying to push along Act 73, is one of the things that people say is, well, based on state testing, the schools in Vermont are doing very, very poorly. And so we've got to make all these major changes. And when you look at what the Agency of Education and the legislature provides to schools and to districts to be able to educate students, it's nebulous, it lacks basic rigor, and it's very open-ended. They literally have a test that we take every year, right? We got the VCAT that students in grades 3 through 9 and grade 11 in science take. That test tests students on specific skills and knowledge, but the state has never told us what those specific skills and knowledge are that test is testing your students are. And I want to give you a perfect example. The VCAT math exam, right? It's taken in 9th grade. The students are tested on Algebra 1, geometry, and statistics on probability. Now, here's a question for the board members, if you can think back this far. They're taking the exam in 9th grade on these subject areas. What grade are you in when you take geometry?
And
usually 5th grade, right?
Yeah.
Statistics and probability, if you take law, is usually taken in 12th grade if you don't want to take pre-calculus.
Right.
So when I talk about the state of Vermont being nebulous and misaligned, and the reason that the state is performing poorly on its tests is because its tests are not valid. They have not provided us with the information that we need to be able to do things properly, right? These students are taking these exams in 9th grade, yet the typical coursework around them is not received until years later. Another thing that I think is important to take a look at, right? You want our students to perform well in mathematics. Well, if you're in Massachusetts, they slap the frameworks down in front of you, and it's very specific about what the students need to know and be able to do. Here is the standards for mathematics in the state of Vermont. They've got a very light proficiency guide for kindergarten, for grade 1, for grade 2. But oh my God, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, grade 8 are under development. Even though the rule for us to have a curriculum that is based upon state standards has been in place for about 2 decades now. In terms of mathematics in grades 9 to 12, right, these are their priority standards. Priority standards means that these are the most important things you have to teach. Well, they don't exist for the majority of the grades. But in terms of grades 9 to 12, they have 12 priority performance standards. None of those 12 go beyond what is expected to be offered in an Algebra 1 class that a typical 8th or 9th grader would take. And so when we talk about this misalignment between what the students are being tested on and what we're given for information about how to prepare them for that, it just doesn't exist. So the idea that the governor can stand up there and the assistant secretary of education who put a stir through the superintendent's group that met about a week ago, when she stood up and said, oh, by every measure in the state of Vermont, our schools are failing except for 12% of them. The question that I have is, can you tell us that your measures are valid? And there's clear indications that they are not. Which is why when we do our internal testing with IXL and soon to be STAR 360, which are nationally normed to Common Core and next generation science standards, our kids are performing 2 to 3 times above what they do on the VCAP. So again, just so as people that are out there, especially with the budget revote that is going to be coming up in Green Mountain, it's important to realize that if you're relying on state testing to say how your schools are doing, don't. The highest performing states on the NAEP, which is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. So this is the same exam taken by all the states in the union. It's administered in grades 4, 8, and a little bit in grade 12, and this is math and ELA. The top performing schools by a long shot. And so when I say top performing, you've got those that are performing at the top. Well, these 5 are not only at the top, but they're a leap above all the ones below them. Massachusetts is number 1. New Jersey is number 2. Florida is number 3. Wyoming is number 4. New Hampshire is number 5. Vermont, who used to be number 1 or 2 30 years ago, is now in the lower middle tier. I think we are just below Alabama. And again, the idea of all this and my little rant here is the failure of the Vermont AOE and the legislature. And I don't even say that the Vermont AOE is failing. It's struggling because the legislature has not provided the funding to pay their people appropriately and to make sure that they're properly staffed to do the work that's needed to be done, to give us the information that we need to be able to teach kids the way the state expects us to. There's a lack of coherence in favor of local control. They require locally developed curriculums that are negotiable, right? They have what are called embedded credits. In other words, if I go off the CTE and I do measurements in my carpentry coursework over at the tech center, I can get my geometry credit that way. Yeah, you can learn a little bit of geometry that way, but it is not the same as taking a full geometry class. They have personalized pathways, which the United States Department of Education has said is not rigorous enough. In other words, I can get my high school credits in things like science and math for going off and doing an internship as a forester, right? Yeah, you're going to learn some things, but you cannot tell me that you are getting the equivalent experience that you would by taking those classes themselves. There is no alignment between the state standards, the materials that they expect us to use, the assessments that they give us, and their teacher preparation programs. And then they have this strong focus in Vermont of providing exceptions as opposed to holding students to rigorous standards in terms of academics and or behavior. And those are the main differences between Vermont and those 5 states that are top of the line. Okay, all right. So,
Wayne, can I ask a clarifying question?
well, certainly.
Can you go back to the slide? Yes, that one. So Vermont takes VTCAP, and these states take the NAEP test, right?
We all take the NAEP, including Vermont.
We all take it?
Yeah, so they have a Congress made sure that as part of the No Child Left Behind Act that there was at least one exam that was consistent for all states in the union.
Okay.
And so that's this National Assessment of Educational Progress. right? Because MCAS in Massachusetts is much different than VCAP in Vermont, which is much different than the state testing in the other states. And so this is comparing apples to apples.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of just kind of a vision, you know, as we're kind of moving out of the budget process and getting ready to pretty much go right back into it in the fall, one of the things that I want to make sure that folks understand that I'm working on is making sure that we are getting ourselves in a good position to be able to address the enrollment requirements that are a part of Act 73. So when we go into the fall budget season that's going to start up again in October, where we're developing the budget for the 27-28 school year, we need to be in a position where we can incorporate all the things that we have to do to meet those enrollment requirements, right? Because even though we're developing the budget in October, it's a year before we can implement them. And that means we're in year 2 of the 3-year span we have to get fully in compliance before the state could come in and take us over if we're not in compliance. By that budget planning time, when it starts in October, we also want to have all the information from our special education program review that's happening, so that if we've got to build some programming or build in some training for teachers to act on the recommendations, we're able to do that. And then the big one for me right now that we've talked about at a couple of the other board meetings is making sure that the high school has the curricular materials it needs to deliver on instruction. Because one of the failures in the state of Vermont as a whole was when they moved to a one-to-one system where every child has a computer as well as every teacher, they stopped buying textbooks and curricular materials.
Oh, geez.
And so if you don't have a curriculum that the state is telling you what to teach, and you don't have curriculum materials that the companies have developed based upon Common Core and next generation science standards, there's no way in heck we're going to accurately hit the targets for a test like BCAP that is supposedly based on Common Core and next generation science standards. And so we got to get those materials in there if we're going to have any shot at seeing some improvements in terms of, you know, high school performance, if the state test is important to people. In terms of facilities, Green Mountain, the PCB remediation is gearing up to move forward this summer to start getting that work done. And the Green Mountain board decided to move forward without waiting for additional grants. Originally, what was happening was they had to remove the caulk around the windows. That's where the PCBs are. The windows are old, and the unit ventilators that are a part of the windows are old too. The hope was that those things would be replaced as opposed to being scraped off and put back in place with new caulk. The state was not going to pay for that as part of the PCB remediation. So we were looking for other grants to try to pay for those replacements. And the reality is the grants that are out there are either too small or it's way too unlikely that we're going to get them. And so rather than pushing this off for years, the board, in my opinion, rightly decided to move forward with that work. We did did the radon testing across the district. The only place that we were out of compliance was a closet space at Chester Andover. They had been using it this year because of overcrowding to do some testing out of for special education, not knowing that there was a radon spike. That has been remediated within 2 weeks of us finding out that there was a problem there. They're getting set up for the testing now that they've got the capture system put in. And the hopes is that, you know, everything is going to come back well under the action threshold. Boiler replacement for the high school has been approved. They're moving forward on that work to hopefully try to get it done this summer. On the Ludlow Mount Holly side, and you can pipe in a little bit if I'm missing some pieces here. We still do not have a contract from the roofing company. I talked with Todd today. He's a bit nervous about that too, and I know that Cheryl is. Todd said, you know, if you want me to, I'll go down and I'll knock on the door and get it done. And so I said, yeah, go ahead. So hopefully we get that secured. In terms of the PFAS work, those forever chemicals that are in the water supply up at Mount Holly School, things are moving forward, except for the fact that they've got to get a right away from the town to be able to finish up the last of the paperwork so they can get started on the actual physical work.
Kelly's working with checking with the town manager, not the town manager, the select board. She thought it was done, but
I checked in with the select board and I've got the name of the lawyer. He was currently not in a place where he could tell me for sure if it had been done or not. So Cheryl, if you don't mind reaching out to Carol on Monday morning, that would be great. And let me know if I need to keep tracking it down or if we just need to start and get it signed again. I don't know where we stand.
And so I've been connecting with Todd. Todd thought that it had already been done. He couldn't say for sure. The rationale being is it sounds like they actually put in some water pipes that crossed across both properties, which typically
there was a little bit of work that had been done.
Yeah, which typically wouldn't have been okay without that easement. Board training, and this is something, just the recommendation for the board. You got new people. I don't know if you want to plan on the VSBA, actually probably Sue, who can come in person and do a board just one-on-one training for the new members. I'll leave that up to the board to decide if that's something they want to do or not. And then part of the policy governance piece here is as we get closer to next year, right, we usually have a little break in the summer. There's 1 month off. I'm going to try to transition the agendas over to a policy governance style agenda. And one of the things that's on those agendas are called the consent items. These are items that you've pretty much delegated to the superintendent and the administration to get done, yet there is a legal requirement for the board to vote on them because of state statute. So they typically go on the consent agenda, and typically with the consent agenda, there's not really a lot of questions. You get the information ahead of time, you get to look it over, and it's just a vote, right? Because I'm the one who's responsible if I didn't do it right.
Can you give some examples of things that the board has done that might not have been necessary?
I'm gonna give you one right now. So board policy executive limitation 2.7 with respect to employment compensation and benefits to non-unionized employees. Those are your non-bargaining staff, mostly the TRSU employees. The superintendent shall not establish or change compensation and benefits that deviate materially from the geographic or professional market for the skills employed. So what that means is it's my job to work with these folks to figure out what their new contracts are going to be because they don't have a union to represent them. And what you've told me by this executive limitation is that it's my job to make sure that they are competitive with the regional professional market for similar people doing a similar job. And so this would technically be something that would be on a consent agenda. So that would be the non-bargaining staff contracts. They are in compliance with the policy. They're in your packet. I'm not asking you to vote on them tonight because you just got the materials, but this is something if you want to look over between now, they're also in your online folder. Look over between now and the next meeting, and you'll see it on the consent agenda at the next meeting, right? And so typically with policy governance, I'm telling you they're in compliance. I'm going to have to prove that to you when I do my executive limitation report next year. But typically that's just a vote. It's a pro forma vote because the state regulations require a board to vote on them. So a little bit of policy governance tonight. Other than that, and it was a lot, very quickly. But if there's questions on anything, I'm happy to talk.
Back on the Mount Holly roof contract, I'm actually, if we could know better by our Ludlow Mount Holly meeting, that would be helpful, I think.
And it's not like there hasn't been communications to them about it. They just don't seem to feel they need one.
Yeah.
Which is concerning. Yeah.
Okay. So they seem to still be planning to do the work.
Yes.
Okay.
Every indication is that they are. We just don't have anything documented on that other than these emails going back.
And you know, the obvious nervousness around that is the contract spells out exactly the work that they are going to do, right? We got the bid, but spells out exactly the work that they are supposed to do. It may put limitations on things like, you told us it was going to be 184,000. If it looks like there's going to be an increase, we won't do anything until, we get approval from the district. So it's important to have those contracts in place.
Especially with the way everything is right now. It's a little concerning.
So other questions?
Okay.
Curriculum report is in the folder. It's also in the packet here. Then it would be, if there's no questions on curriculum, it would be Cheryl.
Is John Bullet?
He was, yes, he is.
Okay. So the March folder is in the March folder. The March financials are in the folder. Everything is pretty on target. Special ed is a bit higher than I'd like to see it, but that is not necessarily a surprise. But we are 3/4 of the way through the school year, which is scary. So the other thing that I'm bringing tonight is a presentation from our auditor, John Boulay, I think I said that correctly, from RHR Smith, is here to give you a presentation on the audit that we had, as well as the single audit that we had.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Hey, good evening, everybody. I do have a short presentation, just like Cheryl had mentioned. Again, for the record, my name is John Boulay. I've been the audit manager, on the SU for, maybe 3 years now. Short presentation. Am I able to share my screen here?
You should be. I was fiddling around with it at the beginning.
Okay,
they
perfect.
All the controls are in Zoom. But looks like it's.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so a short presentation here. I'm just going to touch on some of the major statements and schedules, in the audit. Give you the opinion at the very beginning, and at the end, go through any management letter comments. So, this first slide is are your responsibilities, or the district's or supervisory union's responsibilities during the engagement. This next slide is our responsibilities, or the auditor's responsibilities. This third slide here is an excerpt from the independent auditor's report, page 1 to be more specific. But basically that second paragraph on the left there, we've enlarged it. This is where we provide the opinion. So, in our opinion, we provided the supervisory union with an unmodified opinion, which is a clean audit, and it's also the highest opinion that a supervisory union can receive.
Wow, good.
We'll get into some of the numbers here quickly. So this is a 3-year comparison of the general fund's balance sheet. One note on this page, you'll see the 2023 column, that blue column. The total assets and liabilities were much higher in 23, rather than in the last 2 fiscal years. Nothing to be concerned about. It was just due to higher accounts receivable and a higher accounts payable balances at year end in 23. So, you've kind of leveled out the last couple of years, right around $1.5 million. This is kind of an interesting slide. When I was reviewing it, you can see the non-spendable fund balance on the bottom right at 196% versus the unassigned at negative 96%. If you sum the two together, it's obviously 100%. But what I want to do on this next slide is try and explain that a little better. So, in 23 and 24, I would say a majority, probably around 97% of the fund balance for general fund was unassigned, and it stayed about the same from year to year. Basically, this non-spendable fund balance on the left, that's specifically due to prepaid items. So at the end of fiscal year 25, you can see that there were, a lot more prepaid expenses rather than, the small $2,000 that was there in the last couple of years. So that's what is skewing the fund balance at the end of 25. You can see that green bar on the right. It is a negative 31,000. But that's nothing to worry about. That's going to end up clearing itself out, and I'm sure it already has in FY26. So that's just due again to the prepaid expenses at the end of the year. And, more specifically, related to food service costs. And then, funny enough, there was a bill for the audit in that. So revenues for the general fund, nothing major to note here. There's been a normal increase in revenues from year over year. And again, a majority of these revenues are coming from intergovernmental sources. Budget to actual for those same revenues, general fund, that number on the bottom right, that 450,000, that was the amount that was under received based on the estimated budget here of 9.1 million. It's only about 5%. It's nothing to turn heads about. The main category where we under received was the intergovernmental revenues, almost about 700,000. And you can see the other four categories had over received in those four categories.
So can I ask either you or Cheryl, is the reason for that because you spent less than what you had budgeted, so the districts didn't need to pay as much to the supervisory union?
I'd have to go back to look at the detail of it, because looking at that number, I can't really tell you that.
But is most of the intergovernmental transfer comes from the two districts, is that right?
Right.
Yeah, it could also be grant related funds too. Yep.
Yeah, which was going to be my guess is that right, these are revenues. So the 690, even though it shows as a positive, it means it's money that we expected to collect that we didn't. My guess is that's due to the losses in terms of grant revenue from the federal government in the last 2 years.
But if it was sitting there, my guess is that we didn't spend it, right? Because that's anticipated revenue budgeted. So it may be a grant that we asked for money to do at CFP, but we didn't end up spending it.
Yeah, and I'll go through the expenditure side here in a second too, but correct. So, with this under received amount, you were also under budget by, close to that same amount. So, this next slide is that 3-year comparison, but on the other side, the expenditures, you can see a lot of these budget categories stay relatively the same year over year. And I did hear Cheryl mention that, the special education has been increasing year over year, which you can kind of see closer to the far right. The only other major note I want to touch on is the technology line. You can see that green bar kind of middle left a little bit is higher than a couple of years in the past. And that's just, there were some more technology purchases in 25 that, hadn't been made in the last 2 fiscal years. And again, this is that one that you kind of wanted to touch on, the expenditure budget to actual. It looks like the major budget item that was underspent was transportation. Again, the 450,000 under budget is about 5% of the total budget, and a majority of that is coming from the transportation line. Yep.
Can you just clarify the technology we restructured and we moved a lot of the expenses from the districts into the supervisory union, and that's the big part of the reason for that spike.
Yes.
For transportation, the spending was only a little over half of what was budgeted.
I think it's because we couldn't hire bus drivers, and Ludlow and Holly didn't have one for a good share of the year.
And if I recall, we had put in for an additional bus driver that we then couldn't find, so the money sat there for that position as well.
So the last slide, sorry, just taking notes. So the last slide here, we would normally put any management letter comments, which are, recommendations for management to try and improve internal controls. We're pleased to announce that we did not have any recommendations for Cheryl or her team, at the central office to improve any internal controls. So kudos to her and everybody involved over there. I'd say the last few years have been, a fairly smooth and seamless process. So, we really appreciate the communication back and forth with Cheryl and her team. And that's all I had. Do I have any questions?
All right, well, one more question. I noted that you don't express an opinion about whether the internal controls are sufficient. And I get it, that's the standard. But so as a board member, sort of the question, how carefully do you look at them? Should we be worried that we don't have an opinion about how good they are?
Yeah. So to answer your question, you're correct. We provide an opinion on the financial statements, whether they're, no material defects or misstatements. So when it comes to the internal controls, I don't want to call it an opinion, but that's where the management letter plays a large role. And I'll give you some insight as to what we do. We do walkthroughs with Cheryl and her team, if it's the AP clerk or payroll personnel, human resources. We basically select a sample, a small sample from every single month of the fiscal year to determine if during that month, processes are being followed. And after our test of controls, we call it, we then go ahead and create a management letter. Were there any deficiencies in a certain area, related to disbursements or receipts or payroll, things like that? So that is where you would see some of those comments on this management letter, but we did not have any comments to strengthen internal controls this year. We think they are up to the standards that they should be for a district your size. So one thing that I did hear Cheryl say at the beginning was the single audit. I don't have any slides on that, but I do have the audit open over here. And I can tell you we tested 2 federal grants this year. We tested the Child Nutrition Cluster and the ESSER, the Special Ed Cluster. Oh, not ESSER. We did IDEA B. And based on the notes that I have, there were no financial statement findings and there were no question costs, no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies. So again, during this single audit, there's 2 pieces of it. We do test internal controls related to all those expenditures and reimbursements, but what makes it fun is the compliance side of things. So we noted no deficiencies on the compliance side nor the internal control side.
Would you have any recommendations that were not necessarily significant, but you might like to see and not significant enough for you to put in a management letter?
Cheryl, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the only thing that, Cheryl and I actually had a fairly long conversation about was the fixed assets for the 2 districts. And it has already been fixed. This comes when the district has fixed assets that are considered governmental fixed assets. For example, it's not related to food service or any enterprise fund. Those don't necessarily need to be recorded on the district's financial software. Although we do put them in the audit in a specific statement, that's one thing that we kind of discussed and we adjusted. So honestly, that's the only recommendation I had for Cheryl at the time of field work. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. And again, I'm sure I'll be back next year, and I do have the 2 presentations for the 2 districts coming up in the next couple of weeks. So, if anything comes up that I can think of in the next couple of weeks, I'll definitely relay that to Cheryl.
And for the single audits, I'm trying to remember the term used in it. But were either of these programs major programs under the federal guidelines?
Yeah, so they both were major programs. So the only time we test a program is if it's major. So the reason we are testing those programs is because, yes, they were major this in FY25.
But they were the only two federal grants subject to audit?
Correct. Those are the only two that, reached that $750,000 threshold.
Right. Were there any other programs that you didn't reach that threshold that may have been significant to the district?
Cheryl, you might be better to answer that question, but the 2 cents that I'll put in is there's a program where we input the federal expenditures and it populates the major programs that need to be tested. So even though child nutrition and IDEA B were the 2 major programs we tested in FY25, I'm sure there were numerous others that were large, but did not meet that threshold.
Right.
Do you want me?
No, I understood that, but you also can audit ones or should audit ones that are significant to the district over and above the 750 threshold, which I also believe is increasing to $1 million.
That's correct. Yeah. So every year we try and test something different. If something hasn't been tested 2 years in a row and it ends up being major, we will definitely test it. So in 24, we tested the Education Stabilization Fund. In FY23, we also did the Education Stabilization Fund just because, when you were getting all that money, it made it, very large. It was probably over 50% of the federal expenditures. Am I answering your question?
Semi. In other words, I'm asking if there's a program, not necessarily dollar-wise, but program-wise, that is significant or important to the district.
Consolidated federal.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, and just like Cheryl said, but when we select our major program, we're basing it off a dollar amount, and that's what the federal government has notified us to do. So that's how we select our programs to test.
All right, because I was under the impression that besides the dollar threshold, I think they call them program B programs that are significant to the auditor should be also audited.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing I will say this year is the reason we tested 2 programs was because the child nutrition cluster, or vice versa with the IDEA B cluster, didn't get us to a certain dollar threshold. So we ended up testing 2. So I will say that first one is a type A program, which is over 750. And then the second program is like what you said, type B, where it doesn't necessarily have to meet that threshold, but we can select a second sample or a second program to test in order for us to reach that threshold. So I think that's where, your point's coming from. It doesn't necessarily have to meet that 750, but if it is important to the district and it gets us above a certain threshold, we are required to test it.
All right. And I guess the only other thing, because I had this with with a 501c3, the rationale as to why it's taking 9 months to get an audit report. I understand you probably won't start until 3 months after year-end close, but 9 months after the fact seems a little long.
Well, that is some of timing on our part because we're in the middle of budgets, and I've had these audits since January, but I could have posted them. I just forgot to post them to the website, but we were also working on the budgets and getting the budgets approved. And so that's why we're way late a little bit to get John in here to talk to us.
Oh, the audits were finished earlier then. I misunderstood.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not just being complete. They're due to us by November 15th, and that's a draft. And then I spend the next, few months going over them and going back and forth with the auditor and, making corrections and be asking questions for clarification because I want the things to match. I'm a little picky. I like my numbers to balance just what they are going around differently, which is a challenge for me. So we go back and forth until we agree and that we both feel good about it, and then they finalize it.
All right, thank you.
All right. Any other questions for John?
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Yep. Take care, guys. Cheryl, see you next week.
See you next week.
Yeah. Bye, guy.
Bye. All right. Cheryl, thank you for a good report. I can't imagine that that's easy from someone who doesn't balance a checkbook.
But she smiles the whole time.
Yeah, whatever.
You don't cry.
Yeah. All right. Financial report. Old business. Flag policy first read. This was something that was brought to us by a former Green Mountain Board member who was also serving on the TRSU. I don't know if he got off completely, but he wanted us to visit the flag policy. So it is in the packet, excuse me, for a first read. And we could read it, ask clarifying questions tonight. And then if there is, it would be up for adoption next time if people didn't have any, different opinions.
And as I recall, we discussed the issue at the Ludlow Mount Holly board, and we decided that we would trust our administration, and so that we didn't need a policy. And so I guess I'd ask the question, I understand if Green Mountain wants one, that's obviously up to them. But I'm sure that then as a supervisory union, we need one.
So the Green Mountain one is it's not, I don't think it's at a read. They're in discussion. There's another version that was brought up that'll probably be for them to discuss at their next board meeting. So it's still alive over there. It's dead at Ludlow Mount Holly's is my understanding as well. So
I would suggest at TRSU that we wait until we know what Green Mountain has decided to do. And after they make their decision, then decide whether we want to have a similar or different policy at the TRSU level. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good sense.
All right. So we will table the flag policy at this time, or do we want to bring it back for a second read?
We haven't done a first read, right? If we're tabling it.
Well, it was in our packet, so yeah, I'm not sure how that would be worded, but
we'll make a motion to table.
Yeah.
I move that we table it until after the Green Mountain adopts a policy for them, and then consider it at the TRSU level at that time.
Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Third.
And is there any discussion?
I just think that makes good sense because it's the school board that is talking about the specific schools, and whereas we're the supervisory union, and there'd be a risk if the supervisory union does it first, that the school board would do something different. And then we probably have a problem.
And vice versa. Yeah. And vice versa. I see it this way too. If Green Mountain does something different, I think TRSUs would have to be like an umbrella policy that says something along the lines of the school districts have, so I do think it would be different. That's
yeah.
Well, I think in the past, their general procedure has always been, it just follows the order of the boards, right? So in the course of the month, it's TRSU's up first, and then it's Ludlow Mount Holly, and then it's Green Mountain. I think in the past, if there was a change in one, then it would have to go back and trickle through the others. But this one makes sense, especially if there's no interest on the Ludlow Mount Holly side. So I agree with the logic.
Right. All right. So we will table that completely until it's necessary to bring it back. Mandated cell phone policy, first read. This is the state policy. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And then we can bring it up again next time for a second read?
Sure. So this is a mandated policy. This is the language taken directly from the Agency of Education when it interpreted the law upon which it was based. We had taken it through all three boards at least once, possibly twice, thinking back now, just to see if there was any reason to increase the restrictions that were there. The boards by and far felt that, the policy as it was written was good. Had some discussion, I think it was at Green Mountain, if I recall, I think it was public discussion about that maybe, what the state's done is too restrictive, but we can't lessen off what the state requirements are. And so this is a verbatim from the AOE recommended policy.
Are there any questions for Lane tonight, and then we can bring it back for a second read? No? Okay, then we'll have it for a second read in a month. Sorry, I'm switching tabs here. Hang on. Mandated policy first read. New business. Ownership linkage. Any public comment?
I don't see any hands.
No, okay. Board member comment?
I have a question about that. When it's for a board member comment, is that related to the agenda and business, or just in a general comment related to the entire meeting?
I will tell you how I have always interpreted it in my 8 million years on the board, is that it is our time, the board comment time, to say things that may be on our mind that are not necessarily on the agenda. Sometimes I feel like we step out of our board member role and put on our parent hat or our community member hat, and that is our time to say those comments, and they're not generally a discussion at that time. They're just a board member comment, as they would be a public comment. Maybe I'm wrong.
Sounds right to me.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. What I would want to add as my board comment would be, I appreciate the reporting from the state level that Lane has laid out for everybody. It's very complicated to follow, and the AOE changes things on a day-to-day basis. It's impossible to keep up with them. And I would want our schools to focus on not waiting for the AOE to come up with all the answers. We do have the core curriculum standards in place in Vermont that we can use as a guideline. There are good assessment tools that the district is using to get good data about our students. And the standards areas of geometry and statistics and algebra do also start in kindergarten, and there is a grade band or a standards band for each grade along the way. And since the Cognia test is adaptive, there are opportunities for students who have not taken a full coursework to show proficiency. And I would like to see investment in our teachers, because if you look at research, the most influence on a student success is the teacher, has the highest effect size. And rather than, looking to change programs frequently and what curriculum or program is going to make our students successful, we have wonderful teachers in the district. And that's where I would want to see the money invested in, not one-off PD, but PD that's going to be lasting and supported over many years to be a preventative measure towards students maybe needing to be referred to special education or more intensive intervention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next meeting will be at Ludlow Elementary School, May 7th at 6 p.m. And then we at the TRSU board do a self-evaluation. I don't know if you guys do at Green Mountain. I don't think you do unless you've just started. But I can't get to it. Hang on. Sorry. Do you have it in front of you, Lane?
You want me to read it?
Yeah, if you can, that would be great. I'm switching tabs here.
Board members are given and have read agenda and background materials prior to the meeting. Yes?
Yes.
Board members are respectful of each other, the public, and the administration.
Yes.
Good. Board members handled conflict openly and constructively. Not like we had any conflict to handle, but
I think we did good.
board members focus on the role and responsibility of the board.
Yes.
Yep. Board members act as a team once a decision has been made and work collaboratively throughout decision making.
Yes.
Yep. That's it.
All right. Thank you. And do we need the executive session, Lane?
Yeah, it should be a 5-minute one. It should be quick.
Okay. I move that the board, somebody should read that, not me, I guess.
I move that the board enter into an executive session as allowed under 1 VSA 313-4, discuss dismissal actions regarding probationary employees.
And you're going to invite me.
And inviting Cheryl and Lane.
What?
Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
All right. Any discussion about the executive session? All those in favor of moving to executive session?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Give me 2 seconds because apparently my earbuds aren't working. So I need to go somewhere different.
I should log off, I assume, because
Yeah, if you say that, state the time for executive session, I can pause the recording and move people out.
All right.
7:14.
Again?
So you are
Yes, we
recording?
are. All right. We are out of executive session at 7:24. Is Sophie still in the waiting room? Do we need to call her back?
Everybody's in that was in the waiting room.
Okay. So our board clerk who's not here, right? I don't remember who we elected. It was so.
She'll be able to get it from the recording.
Okay, good. All right. So, go ahead.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that administrators at the schools be authorized to submit or to send out documents about probationary status employees and reductions under section 15.3C of the collective bargaining agreement.
So I would be careful. This would not be a reduction in force. This would be for non-renewals.
Non-renewal. Okay. I'd like to amend the motion. I make a motion that school administrators be authorized to send out notification to employees who will be non-renewed for the FY27 school year.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion about the non-renewals?
My understanding is probationary employees.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right. Thank you. And then
I move we adjourn.
I second that. All right. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Thank you.